We're live.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Sorry for the lateness of us getting started this evening. We had a few technical difficulties, but we're here, and we have our guests, Ty Jackson and William Fry Arnold Jr. We thank you so much for joining us this evening for a live happy hour. This will also be turned into a podcast available wherever you listen to podcasts. But we thank you all, our audience, for joining in on this conversation where we're going to be talking about processing trauma in the midst of your career, right? We're the Career Salon, and a lot of our content is career oriented, and this is real life, right? You have things that happen to you in the midst of your career. I can just say for Carla and myself, even us, we've had some unimaginable things happen while we've been in the world of work. Just imagine getting a call at work and our brother died. And then 6 months later, our sister died. And then 2 years later, our father died, all in threes. And so we've had unimaginable tragedy that's happened to us in our careers. And it's a reality that you have to, process these things and go through the steps to overcome. And how do you do that and still maintain your career? So that's a topic area that we're going to be covering tonight with our guests, Ty and William. We call them Fry. We have a connection through Tennessee State University. That's the tie that bonds us. So excited to have you all with us. I'm not going to kind of go on about your bios. I really want you all to speak to our audience and tell them who you are. So maybe we'll start with you, Fry.
Oh, wow. Okay. It caught me off guard. Again, my name is William Arnold. Everybody calls me Fry. I'm originally from a little small town in West Tennessee. Most people have never heard of it. We call it Memphis. As I said, from there, and I did my undergraduate work at the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, go Vols. And then after that, I moved to Nashville, and I got involved in Nashville life, did my graduate work at TSU, fell in love with higher education, and got involved with working for different state agencies, the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, the Tennessee Board of Regents, working on programs that were about getting more Tennesseans into college and out of college, people who look like us, people who walk and talk like us, not only just in the classroom, but also as faculty. And that's pretty much how I started out.
Okay.
All right.
Ty?
Yes, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I am Tyrann Jackson. Everybody from TSU knows me as Ty. Everybody since I grew up knew me as Ty. So I am happy and pleased to be here. Unlike Fry, I'm originally from a real small town. It's called Florence, Alabama. And that's where I was born and raised. Went to Tennessee State, went to school, had a great time at TSU, got a degree as a mechanical engineer, and started my career as an engineer. And did that for many, many years. After leaving Nashville, moved to Indianapolis and lived there for about 8 or 9 years before moving to Atlanta back in 2009. So my career had been primarily shaped within the industry of engineering and aerospace up until things changed. And we'll go into that a little bit later, but It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm happy to share my story and talk about these issues, about the traumatic changes that can happen within your career. And just be here to help and enlighten others throughout this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And like Camille said, it's like you can be working in a job and a career, loving the thing that you're doing, and then boom, out of nowhere, the unexpected happened. And we're in HR, so we've heard the stories. We've encountered employees that have had traumatic events that happen in their life, and we're there to support them and help them through it. But can you all start to give us a little bit of background about the traumatic event that has changed your life most recently? I guess we'll go back to Fry, since
Go back to Ty. Okay, my event started actually in December of 2010. I've been volunteering with a local organization in Nashville. I got a call from the mother of the young person with whom I had been working with a number of accusations. And, to listen to you all stories, I was literally sitting at my desk when she called me with this. It was December 8th, 2010. From that point, it became just this huge snowball effect. I was then sued for millions of dollars. I then was indicted. I was, had to spend a night in jail. And then afterwards, I spent the next 2 years fighting up to a trial. Um, after a 5-day trial, I was found guilty. Um, I was immediately taken into custody about 11:30 at night on a Friday night, and I spent the next 6 years and 9 months fighting for my freedom from inside the Tennessee prison system. My case was finally overturned in February of last year. I was released on April 16th, and so now I'm approaching 1 year. So that's just sort of a big ball of wax of the trauma that I've been dealing with for the last 10 years.
Wow.
Wow. Incredible. That's Ty. What has been the most recent traumatic event for you that has impacted your life?
Well, let me start off and warn everybody who's listening, this is going to get a little heavy. So I'm going to share with you some of this story. For those of you who went to TSU and many of you who know us, my wife was Malika Jackson. She was a student at TSU, aka she did a lot of great things for a lot of great people. My story goes back 2.5 years ago. At that point in time, Malika and we were celebrating our 15th wedding anniversary. We knew we were coming up to that point, and I mean, we were excited. We were looking forward to this time. You know, it's hard in this day and age to find somebody that you love, you care about, that you really genuinely enjoy being around. And that's how me and Malika were both. She was actually, she had just gotten promoted to be a director in diversity and inclusion in HR with the company, with the Fortune 500 company, and she was going through the process of getting everything finalized. She had moved into an interim director role about a month before we were going on this trip. And part of this trip, even though we didn't know it at the time, was to celebrate, you know, her promotion as well as reaching that milestone of being together for 15 years. Mm-hmm. We went to the Bahamas and thought everything was great. First 2 days, we had a phenomenal time. Everything was wonderful. We got to spend some time on the beach, time at the pool, had a couple of fruity drinks. You know, we were just having a good time. On the third day, one of the things that Malika had wanted to do was to actually go on a tour on the island. They had some wild pigs there, and that was one of the things she wanted to do, swim with the pigs. So I was like, okay, cool, let's go ahead and do that. Booked a little excursion for us to get up that Saturday morning, go to where we needed to take off and enjoy this trip. The trip was our plan that morning. We got up 6:30. We were there eating breakfast at the place we needed to get some food. At 8 o'clock, we were supposed to be at this pickup point for a bus to take us to the dock. So excited. We were there at 7:45, first couple there. Other people came along, but we were good. 8 o'clock, we're leaving. 9 o'clock, we're actually boarding this small boat to start this trip and think about how great this adventure was going to be with one another. We take off at 9 o'clock. Everything seems fine. We leave. We start looking at the scenery, looking at everything. All is wonderful. 9:05, everything changed. Unbeknownst to us, there was a fuel leak underneath where we were sitting. And all of a sudden, the boat exploded. And then when I came to, I was knocked unconscious on the surface of that boat. And I didn't know what was going on. When I woke up, it was because flames were burning my leg. Now, there was a second boat that was actually taking off doing the same thing we were, and they weren't too far away from where our boat was at that point in time. And as I tried to drag myself off the surface of that boat, I passed out again. Luckily, passengers from that second boat came and pulled me off and took me to their boat. But when I was actually starting to grasp what was going on, because I was in shock, my first thing was, where is Malika? How is Malika? What's going on? Because, you know, everything was great as far as I could tell a couple minutes before. The next thing I remembered, I'm getting carried into a clinic. And at that clinic, there were, as I was getting rolled in, I could hear her moans and her yells and her screams. And all I could think about is, I hope she's okay. I hope that she's good. And here I am. I'm in a broken state to begin with myself.
Mm.
The doctors tell me, I ask them, how's Malika? And they don't tell me anything. They tell me they're going to send me to another hospital. I go to the other hospital and they're telling me Malika's coming behind me. And they put me into emergency surgery. I get out of surgery. The doctors come back in. And I ask them, first thing I ask them is Malika here? Where is Malika? And they tell me, Mr. Jackson, your wife didn't make it. And at that time, I wanted to believe that they meant that my wife hasn't gotten on the plane to fly to this other hospital yet. Then they came back to me and told me, no, she passed away. So I was in a very rough state. That shock of knowing that physically I'm in a hurt state. On top of that, I had to call our 12-year-old son at the time, Cameron, and tell him mommy isn't coming home, which was rough. And to make matters even worse, that same day, that same night, and let me back up a little bit. Part of the result of the accident, my left foot was dislodged from my leg. My ankle bone was out. I was bleeding profusely. It had gotten infected. When I got to the hospital, they tried to reattach that. So by the time that second day came and I was laying in the hospital bed, I saw the EKG monitor over my bed where all my vitals went from green to yellow to red. And I was laying there thinking to myself and praying to God that, okay, I've already taken my wife away from me. I'm about to die here as well. And so there was a lot that was going on and going through my mind through those times where, I didn't believe that I was even going to be here to be able to talk. And it was already hurtful and sad enough that Malika wasn't going to be able to make it and that she was gone. But that was 2.5 years ago. Talk about a traumatic event, something that changes your life, losing that person who you had depended on. And, Malika and I, we were married 15 years, together for 17 years. We had a lot together, and to have that just snatched away was traumatic, to say the least.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Like, that is heavy. Both of your stories, very, very heavy. Probably a heavy grieving process, and still walking that path of grieving and overcoming and try to move on. So, I know that this heavily, affected you all personally, and we know you all. It's affected us as well, and our hearts, we're going out to you and still do. But, as a professional, and you all both working in your careers, you all were on track, doing things that you love to do. How did this experience impact your career? And do you think about your career path or your trajectory differently now that you've experienced this type of trauma?
I'll start. Well, when my situation initially started, as I said, I spent 2 years just fighting it. And at the time I was involved in other organizations, leading some organizations, serving on boards. So it was really trying to just keep it all together. And it was a challenge. It was hard because I was experiencing trauma, but didn't realize it. I wasn't sleeping. I was still trying to work out. And I'd actually started going at that time. And this is before even talking about mental health, if you will, was cool. I started seeing a counselor. I started trying to process, why am I feeling this way? How do I deal with this? I can say the quality of my work suffered because I started working a second job to pay legal bills. So it was a lot going on. Yeah. And I remember the night that I was found guilty. And as I said, they took me straight to the jail. And I think I slept for like 2 days because it was just the first time I ever just had just time to just be still. Mm-hmm. And then to try and make sense of what I've been going through from that point in 2013 back to that day in 2010. So I guess I'd say that sometimes you're going through things and you don't realize how it's affecting you until you're just made to be still. And I think the word says that, be still and know that I'm God. And so it's that being still that it let me realize that, man, you are not well.
Yeah. And I just want to follow up, like, how do you think that this event or this experience has impacted how you think about your future career? Like,
Yeah.
are you on the same road as what you were before?
No.
Has it changed or what you want to do?
Um, it is absolutely taking me off, as I like to say, up and down I-40 to just a whole different path. Um, Rarely do we think about, particularly in the circles that we all run in, about mass incarceration, about the effects of the criminal justice system, about how it affects people, period, unless by chance we have a relative or friend who has been on the inside.
Mhm.
So
Right.
for me, it introduced me to just a whole different set of problems in society and a whole different group of people who have been disproportionately affected by these problems. We hear about them in passing, we see little snippets on the news, but it's not until you become fully immersed, if you will, into this culture that you realize, my goodness. I wrote about this recently. I hear God tell you that he won't his probation officer hasn't been born because this man has to be in prison 51 years before he can even see someone to talk about him possibly getting out of prison, or to
Wow.
hear a man on the phone talking to his mother and he's saying, I'm gonna try and clean up somebody's cell so I can get some stamps to mail to you so you can write me, because you have people who are dealing with some very serious issues, and this is just that's just the small stuff. I mean, there's so many other things that you see. So I say that to get you to understand. And now it's about helping those people. It's about giving a voice to this voiceless, to
Yeah.
this group of people who are mostly people of color, but who also a large number of them are also poor whites. A lot of uneducated people who don't realize that they got a raw deal. Society gave a raw deal. The haves made certain that the have-nots didn't get it and won't get it.
Wow.
So that's what I feel my calling is in a lot of ways, is to be that advocate of those people, because I made some really good friends actually. And unfortunately some friends who I may never see again, because there's some of those guys that they gotta wait 51 years until they can actually see somebody to talk about. Or some
Wow.
guys who don't even have that option. They may never come home. But thankfully I got to know them as people. I got to have a conversation with them, to make and share a meal with them, to work out with them, things that we would do with friends and family out here in the free world. So those things have totally changed my perspective of the criminal justice system and how it affects people.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
a people issue.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Ty.
Yeah. Going back to how did this experience impact my career? Let me start with that. As I was saying earlier, my everything that I had known up to that point was working in corporate, being an engineer. I was moving up through the ranks where I was at. But once this event occurred to me and to us as a whole, but to me, a lot of things came into a different perspective. You know, one of these traumatic events, they do change you in ways, and at the moment when those things happen, in the moments immediately after, career was not what was on my mind. I mean, obviously, survival was one of the things that was far more important. Trying to figure out family, I was trying to figure out at that point in time, I was physically broken. I mean, I was broken in a horrible state. Emotionally, I was broken. I had to figure out, let me get those pieces back together. What my future entailed, I didn't even know if I was going to have a future. And then trying to figure out how I was going to be a single father alone after having Malika there were the things that were more important to me to figure out. I mean, as you know, I had to learn how to walk again. You don't think about that. But I went 3.5 months without ever taking a step in my body. I lost a ton of weight. And on top of that, had PTSD of the accident and everything. So those were priorities that I had to get together before even looking at moving forward. But in the midst, and like Frost said, you know, when you have the moment and the time to be still, sometimes things come into perspective that you don't really realize and think about. And in the midst of doing this, it became apparent to me that the career and the life that I knew before was not going to be the life that I was going to have going forward. And I got hit with purpose, what the purpose was. And you know, a lot of us, we don't have a clear understanding of what our purpose is. We just start, just going through the motions and doing things. But as I started recovering, and it became clearer and clearer that God kept me here for a reason, because I had multiple times in the midst of that accident and immediate recovery where he could have taken me, that he wanted me to stay here to do something different. And that's what led to opportunities that came down the road to begin speaking to people and trying to, I started off talking to other amputees, people who were about to be, people who were going through either some type of traumatic, physical change. People who were, just finding out that they had cancer, or that they were just trying to get the mindset right. Don't get me wrong, this wasn't immediate. This was sometime after I went through my healing and recovery process. Right. And what I learned, and I didn't realize this at the time as well, but sometimes just having people listen and hear my story help them start their healing process and start to recover. And it became clear to me that even though I didn't think I would be a speaker or doing this, that this was the destiny that God put in front of me. So as much as I enjoyed what I was doing as an engineer, and I knew I could go back to it, it wasn't where it was intended for me to go. And that became clear. So but at the same time, with the way that I think and approach things, it was so structured before to veer off and do something completely different was a realization. But the sooner I stopped fighting it and just started accepting that this is what I needed to do, the better approach I had towards it, and the more I started to embrace the help that I was actually bringing to others.
Yeah, that's great. You find a greater purpose. Sometimes I think that purpose is fluid, and depending on what happens to you throughout your life, some people feel like your purpose in life is just one thing. And that's not necessarily true. Your purpose can evolve and change and turn around based on things that you encounter throughout your life's journey. And so I think, it's amazing that you all have you have gotten out of this a higher purpose and are helping people. And, Fry, you being an advocate, and Ty, you having connections with people that may have gone through traumatic experiences like you. So I think that's awesome. And you can disagree with me, but is that a part of your healing? Embracing that purpose and having conversations with people that may have similar experiences?
To some degree, it is a part of my healing, because I have this idea that I don't want anyone else's child to have to go through what I went through with the criminal justice system, with what happened with what I like to call personal risk management. I mean, we're all to some degree bred to do these good things in our lives, to volunteer, to help, to donate, whatever, whether it's through organizations or how you were raised.
Right.
But being able to spread this message, if you will, telling people, be careful, telling people that you think you're helping change someone's world and they're looking to turn your world upside down, is important, because very few of us realize the importance of just simple things like tracking your movements, just knowing where cameras are, so that way you can always document where you were, keeping receipts, simple things that we don't even think about anymore. Because my dad likes to say, a mouth can say anything. You don't know who's going to tell a lie on you. You don't know who's going to say something simply because they don't see the big picture, or they're trying to sue you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when we think about a lot of people that are employees, or even people in our audience, and you all have great support out here. I know Shantae says, awesome to hear how God and faith remain in the center of both of these amazing men's traumas. And thank you for sharing. And so lots of support out here for you all, and well-deserved, because you all are just overcomers. And I'm truly inspired by both of you. And I tried to, I'm trying my best to hold back tears tonight, because I'm super happy that you all have evolved and found a way to make something that could be horrible into something that could help other people. So when we think about helping other people, what is some advice you can give other people that might be in their career and they just had a traumatic moment and they're just really trying to get themselves together, but they don't know how? And we know therapy is recommended. We will recommend therapy all day, every day. But what are some of the things that helped you through your healing process in both cases that you can share with other people? Like, did you do something special? Did you do like meditation? Did you journal? Did you, what types of tools did you use to get back to a safe space in your head?
Yeah, let me
I'll let you go,
go
Tom.
ahead. Um, First off, the thing about the therapy and the mental health is so important. I don't know where I would be if I didn't have my therapist. There were so many things that had to get put back together, and a lot of the time, and many of us as African Americans don't always look to go out and seek that help, or
Right.
or either you crazy if you need somebody or whatever. But the reality of it is that there's so many things that cause us or trigger us in life, and it has a cumulative effect. And you don't realize how big that is until something causes you to break down completely.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need that help in order to just be able to get yourself back together emotionally and focus on what's in front of you. And so I highly suggest and recommend for anybody who, I mean, even if you don't think you have issues, you probably do. And when these traumatic events occur, they can just push you over the edge if you don't watch yourself. The therapy helped accelerate my healing process. And so, and a lot of people find themselves stuck. And part of the reason they find themselves stuck is because they don't go out and seek the help.
Yeah.
Look, there's no single person that's done anything and everything by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a courageous person to an authentic person to realize, look, I can't do all this by myself.
Yeah.
And it's people who know more and understand more. There's no reason why going through what I went through that I wouldn't go to a grief counselor to talk about and accept and understand why I was feeling the way that I was feeling, and not just that, but how to get past it.
Yeah.
Now, one of the other questions you asked, Carla, is how did I start to heal and get through that? One of the things you mentioned was very important. I've never been much of a writer. However, I realized I had to start journaling to capture the thoughts that, my life with Malika and the things that, we had did in the past, and even letters to her, even though she wasn't here anymore, to sort of get those things on paper and to allow me to process it.
Mm-hmm.
If I hadn't have done that, then like I said, the starting point of being able to move forward with my life, it would have taken so much longer. So, I think that that's something that we need to all consider and not minimize and not look past it. I think that it's great to have people to give you advice and to help walk you through that, because you need the community as well to help you, but also understand that there's a reason why there are some people who are experts at things in order to help pull us forward and push us through.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely.
Absolutely.
Fry, what about you? Any
Oh,
advice?
yeah. Like Ty, I journal. I mean, I've got a number of notebooks. I have these pocket journals from every year I was in prison, where I constantly wrote things down because I knew someday I wanted to share this experience. I want to share it in as authentic a way as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But now for me, that's to some degree, I've been reliving that trauma, and I say that because now to to read that stuff, to start writing it, to start documenting it and using it for some other things I'm gonna do later on in life. It puts me back in that place.
Mm-hmm.
It puts me back in this cell where I was by myself in a cell for 4 months, and the things that I was thinking and the anxiety that I was having. So it puts me back there. But at the time, it was very good for me to be able to process it and to think about it, and then to have those talks with God. Those talks were like, you hear folks say it, and it sounds, in the midnight hour. And I mean, there have been some very hard nights, and to read about those nights, because I'm gonna wake up and write. And again, it was just it just transports me back there.
Yeah.
But that's just it. It's there. What also helped was being able to sit in that space and to become narrowly focused on controlling what you can control. And I
Yes.
think oftentimes that's how we never learn to deal with trauma, is because we allow it to overcome our thoughts, we
Yeah.
allow it to overcome our feelings, and then we can't even use our words to express what we're dealing with. So what has continued to help me was breathing techniques, mindfulness, other ways that I learned to get in the space with God, with whatever anybody wants to call him. I call him Jesus, I call him God, but to get in that space and to just allow the opportunity to think clearly, to breathe clearly, to feel everything, and to control what you can control, how you think, how you feel, and what you say. And everything else just has to take care of itself because you can't control it, but you can only control how you deal with it. And so that was one of the really important ways that I was able to deal with and still deal with trauma, because life isn't sunshine and rainbows every day. Please don't get it twisted. I still struggle being out in the free world. So yeah.
Okay.
Brian said this is an awesome discussion. Thank you, Brian, for being here supporting. And, Shantae is reiterating the sentiment of control what we're able to control. Right on.
Yeah.
So when we talk about having a support system or friends or family that might be directly connected to you all or not connected, do you find it challenging when people expect certain things from you when you are going through things or you went through things? So people are expecting you to feel a certain way or not feel a certain way or do certain things on their timing or not. What are challenges that you have experienced from other people, like kind of,
Ty, that's
You
you,
want
brother. He and I talked about this. That's you, brother.
Yeah, do you have any experience with the peanut gallery? That's what I think that's what we're trying to say in a nutshell.
Okay. Here's the reality. Here's at least my reality. And Frau, like you said, we've discussed this before. Everybody has great intentions. Everybody has, they feel for your situation. They want to help out, and they want to do what they think the best thing is for you to let you know that they care. However, it can be, and in some ways, it can be extremely overwhelming when that time arises, when the first time that you get to be around people again, or even when that situation occurs and people, just find out and they want to call, text, mess, all these types. When you're processing the trauma, you're not able to process these interactions with other people. And it can have more of a negative effect than a positive effect at that initial moment. Now, that doesn't mean to say that later down the road that having that interaction from other people isn't helpful, because it actually is.
Yeah.
But dealing with that trauma in that moment, you have to build yourself up to the point where you're even capable of being able to take that from other people. But most people don't realize that. And I've concluded that it isn't a flaw of everybody. It's just people don't understand that.
right.
And when they say, okay, you need your space, I need my space, that is a true statement, because it's so much more that's going on that others don't really understand or realize. But from the exterior, you just see it as, something happened to Ty. I feel bad about that. Let me reach out to it. And yeah, it can be in that moment when the traumas occurred, it can be counterintuitive.
Yeah, understand that completely. And thanks for sharing that, because people need to know, because just in case they have a friend or family member that's going through.
Yeah.
Fry, did you find it challenging for people to have expectations on you? And
Yeah, absolutely. Because everybody thought there was, hey, he's gonna get out, he's gonna hang out and talk to everybody. Nah, the pandemic for me has to some degree been a blessing. Okay, because it has given me the opportunity to not have to be around people, to not have to be around crowds, to not have to feel obligated to be at homecoming or whatever it is. I mean, I still have yet to be around a large crowd of people, and I'm happy about it. Because I don't know how I would respond. I mean, sometimes just pulling up to a gas station seeing a lot of people, a lot of movement at a gas station, I'll just say, well, I'll just get some gas in the next place.
Wow.
Yeah, really, because I was in an environment where everything was controlled movement. You walk in a line everywhere. We weren't allowed to run. If you run, you get written up and you go to the hole. Only guards ran when there was an emergency. You knew there was somebody who's either fighting or a guard needed help. And so, but you're instantly drawn to that because you're not used to seeing fast, quick movements. And so I'm still not used to that. So even I was in the grocery store the other night, and it was so many people, so much movement. I just said, well, let me just either get out of here now, or find some place where I can just observe, because you don't want people moving around, you're constantly thinking about this environment that you were just in, and you want to try and find that space where you can process and make sense and control what you can control. But sometimes when there's so much going on around you that you can't control,
Right.
you got to remove yourself from the situation. So as I said, thankfully, I've used this time to remove myself from a lot of situations where it's just not the best place for me.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I definitely get that. Definitely get that. So we're, in the career salon talking about careers, and obviously, you all have perspectives that we could possibly share with people that follow us or are in our audience that are managers or leaders within their organizations, or they're entrepreneurs and they manage people. How do what kind of things can managers or leaders do to create an environment of support when they have employees that go through traumatic experiences? Ty, you want to go?
Yeah. My thing with that is the traumatic experiences are going to affect us emotionally and mentally. And when we're not focused emotionally and mentally, we're not going to be the most productive that we can possibly be.
Right.
So what I would state to managers and to co-workers and the other people is to have a bit of empathy for that person, for those people when they're going through those situations. You got to allow them to get themselves back together before they can begin to get back to the person that they were, or before you can expect them to do things at the level that they did before. I knew that right after the traumatic accident that happened to me, I couldn't focus at all. I couldn't think about anything more than 2 minutes before either I went to a state of sadness, or I just couldn't stay focused on that one particular thing because my mind is going in so many other different places. And so the magnitude of that can vary, but to understand that people need time to heal from those experiences is something I would advise the managers to just keep in mind, that because we all go through these things. Some of them are worse than others, but at the same time, having that empathy of give them a better chance of being able to connect and allow those people to be able to get back on their feet before expecting them to get back and do what they were doing before.
Right. Yeah, that's some good advice. Right?
Wow. It's, when you're in the workplace, you're only going to talk about so many personal things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we got to be realistic about, because we all have this understanding of separating job and personal. So I think this is sort of a new challenge for human resources professionals. We think about creating 90-day plans when you start a job. So how can human resources professionals begin to build in this thing of how do we begin to transition or mainstream this person back into the workforce, back into what we have going on, picking up projects, basically giving them those small wins every day, that low hanging fruit in the workforce, or whatever responsibilities, maybe not the same stuff they were doing, but some of the same things, and slow walking them back into it. I mean, it's a whole, when we talk about DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, this is another way to begin to include those people. But now your workforce is even more diversified, because you could have a high producing employee who now has this bump in the road that he or she is still trying to get over, get through, get around, or whatever you want to do. But now they're back in the workplace and they're not the same. But how do we still support him or her? How do we still make them a part of our workforce? And how do we allow them that space to use what has happened to them to be able to teach others? I mean, we can all learn from each other in so many ways, but how can we make that a part of it? So as I say, I think it's just a whole new level of territory that can be opened up by HR professionals and not just managers.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that takes me back to a conversation that we had not too long ago about emotional intelligence, right?
Yeah.
And not thinking that people aren't doing things because they're ignoring you or they don't like you or certain things like that, or they're not responding to your email in a timely manner because they just don't want to. It's having and increasing that emotional intelligence. Somebody might be going through something and you may not have the details, right? And so having that emotional intelligence to give people the benefit of the doubt that, like you said, Fry, everybody doesn't have discussions on what they're going through personally. So you have to give people around you that grace, and that's called emotional intelligence at work. So I agree with you there.
So how do we build that into the workplace?
Yeah.
Jocelyn had a question. How can your support community support your professional and personal growth?
Are we being specific or just in general?
Yeah.
Because I guess just being there and encouraging, helping, just giving those words of encouragement that, we're with you and that we want to see you grow and move forward and heal from the situations that happen that may be traumatizing and redirect our lives or whatever. So I think that's something that the community can do for those who are going through these situations. And then at that point, as the individual who is going through the situation, it's on them to some extent to open up and allow themselves to be vulnerable. And in some ways that helps open the door as to how much help they need from others. So as a part of that community or support group, though, just the encouragement alone and just letting them know you're thinking about them and that you care and that you want to see them succeed. These are the things that I think would probably be best, at least to break the ice as they're trying to grow and develop from the situation that might have set them back some.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Fry, did you have any?
Absolutely. Two things. I guess first thing is be genuine. Like Ty said, check in, touch base. I've got some folks who still a year later. I mean, I know I got at least I'm going on 52 text messages that I got from every week. You okay? You good? Just checking in, and that's fine. And I appreciate that. But what is most important is being patient with us, being patient with that person, because sometimes I don't know what I need until I need it.
Yeah.
And so people will ask you that, and you're just kind of stuck in this place of, okay, I got to come up with something. And so, but it makes me always process and be thankful that no, I don't need anything right now. I may want something, but I don't need it. And so I say to be patient with whomever that person is that's dealing with that trauma, dealing with that issue. And they're going to, in time, if you're genuine, they're going to come back to you and they're going to tell you what they need. And then at that time, you have the opportunity to bless that person.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. That's good advice. So let's talk. We're getting to time, unfortunately, where we have to wrap up. But I do have one more question for you both. Is what's next for you both, business-wise, career-wise, just anything you want to tell us that's coming up or that you like to focus on. So Ty, I know you have Reborn Resilient. If you could talk a little bit about that and talk about your mission moving forward.
No problem. I'd be happy to. Reborn Resilient is my platform in which I like to use to help others who are overcoming some level of adversity and trauma. So this topic that we're talking about is very specific to what I do with Reborn Resilient. And people ask me at times, what is the point of it? As I stated before, that event changed me. I'm not the same Ty that I was before then. I had to learn how to process things different. I had to get a different perspective. And most importantly, as I stated earlier, I found my purpose through the pain that I had to go through. And in doing that, I use Reborn Resilient as my platform to either do one-on-one consulting or keynote speaking. I got an online course coming out and a book that's coming real soon. But in the midst of it, I try to help others who are trying to find their purpose and to get from being stuck in whatever state that they're in. This is not just for those who've gone through these, major traumatic incidents, but we go through transitions in life where you may lose a job or have a divorce, and when you find yourself in a state where you're trying to get out of that state of being stuck, and not just get through it, but I'll try to help people thrive. So I use the experience that I had over the 2.5 years of recovery since then as a blueprint to try to map out ways that others can get to a point where they're not just living, but they're overcoming the obstacles, bouncing back from whatever adversity that they're facing, hence the term resilient, and then being able to move to a point where they're thriving and reaching their professional goals or emotional state where they want to be in, and trying to be the best version of themselves. I've had to remodel myself into finding the best version of myself, and that's part of what came out of this. As far as some of the other things that I'm doing, I've got a real estate investing firm that I manage mostly here in Atlanta, but in places all over the country, having properties and trying to help find solutions for others who either want to get into investing or want to invest collectively. So that's one aspect of it. But as far as the platform to help people understand that resilience is a choice and find that strength within them, that's what I look to do and help others with. So that's my thing with Reborn Resilient. Just as a quick plug, you can find me Instagram, Facebook, Reborn Resilient, or either LinkedIn, Tyrann Jackson, or Facebook, Tyrann Jackson. But there's more to come soon, and you can visit me at rebornresilient.com and find out more on what's going on there.
Thank you so much.
Wow, it's awesome. Yeah, well, I'm nowhere near as structured as Brother Ty.
My bad, bro.
But hey, that's all right, man. Look, you have truly discovered your superpower, all right, and I'm still trying to figure out mine so that I can become that superhero. So I applaud you, brother. I applaud you. I'm still trying to figure out a lot of things. I'm currently compiling, as I said, my journals and my notes for a book to be released. I just became, and it's good for you to say real estate. I just became a real estate agent here in Tennessee, and as I think about that, it's still the idea of how do I use these things, this voice, this experience to help people. A hard part about this experience for me has been re-entering society. And when I came out, I was able to have a car, a home, some money in my pocket, things that a lot of these guys won't have. So how do I use real estate? How do I use this voice? How would I help these people, A, restore their dignity, B, come back into the workforce whole, and also to have someone speaking for them. So I look at it as a way to diversify the workforce, as a way to help provide some housing for these men and these women who are coming home to their families, and to help them re-enter society and remove that stigma of having been in prison and having dealt with their trauma. So for me, I'm constantly looking at it as a way to help others, as a way to allow them that opportunity to win, to win outside of prison and in life again. So I'll be calling you, Ty, to help me.
We need to chop it up, Fry.
Yeah,
we got some things to make this time fry thing or frying Ty thing work. So.
Hey, it's cool. I'm with it.
I love it. We want to thank you both for joining us. This has been a really impactful conversation.
Good. We got good feedback from the audience.
Yes.
I'm enjoying this. Great job. Yes.
So we thank you so much for joining us, telling us your stories. We know that it can be easy to make yourself vulnerable and share personal details of your life with others, but we appreciate that because it will help somebody else. We would like to thank our audience for sticking with us and joining us for this episode of the Happy Career Salon Happy Hour. We want you all to, we will include, Carla has it there. Thanks. Information below, but you can always continue to follow us on the Career Salon Facebook page, Instagram, YouTube. And we're trying to be everywhere. And our purpose is to help people thrive in their careers. I thank you for that word, Ty, of thrive, because it's been amazing. And I'm always smiling at you both for thriving, for keeping that push. And we wish you all the best, and we thank you so much for spending time with us. And we are going to turn this into a podcast, so you all will be able to reference this probably in the next week or so, everywhere you can listen to podcasts. So thank you so much, everyone, and we'll catch you on the next episode of our happy hour.
Thanks, ladies.
Bye.
Todd, take care, buddy.
Everyone.